Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey may be best remembered for its playful satire of Gothic fiction, but behind its parody lies a sharp critique of social values, materialism, and patriarchal authority. One of the most apparent embodiments of these critiques is General Tilney, father of Henry and Eleanor Tilney and master of Northanger Abbey. While not a Gothic villain in the literal sense, General Tilney is nonetheless a formidable figure whose tyranny is rooted not in secret crimes, but in the more ordinary, and yet equally destructive, obsessions with wealth, power, and status. Role in the narrative. General Tilney serves as both a gatekeeper and an obstacle in Catherine Morland's journey toward maturity and eventual marriage. Early in the novel, Catherine is invited to Northanger Abbey under the general's seemingly warm hospitality. His attention to her, however, is not motivated by affection. Still by self-interest, he believes, through misinformation spread by John Thorpe, that Catherine is wealthy and thus a suitable match for one of his children. His courtly manners and exaggerated attentions toward Catherine initially conceal his calculating nature. Still, his sudden reversal, casting her out of Northanger Abbey without escort or compassion once he learns she is not wealthy, reveals the coldness and cruelty at the core of his character. Narratively, General Tilney provides Catherine with her most painful lesson in discernment. At Bath, she misjudges Isabella Thorpe's character. At Northanger, she misinterprets the general through Gothic imaginings, suspecting him of possibly murdering or imprisoning his wife. While her Gothic suspicions prove false, her instinct that the general is tyrannical is not entirely misplaced. He is not a murderer, but he is a man who exerts oppressive authority over his children and treats Catherine with ruthless indifference when her fortune proves inadequate. His eventual reconciliation, consenting to Henry's marriage to Catherine, comes only after Eleanor Tilney makes a wealthy match, underscoring his consistent prioritization of financial considerations over personal happiness. Thus, in the narrative, General Tilney functions as the antagonistic force who creates conflict, exposes social hypocrisy, and tests Catherine's resilience. He is the closest the novel comes to offering a villain. However, his villainy lies not in Gothic excess, but in the very real cruelties of class ambition and patriarchal authority. Symbolic significance. Catherine's imagination, fueled by her reading of Gothic novels, transforms General Tilney into a figure akin to Montoni in Anne Radcliffe's The Mysteries of Udolpho, a cruel patriarch who may have imprisoned or murdered his wife. Austen plays this misperception for comedy, but the humor is laced with a serious undertone. While Catherine's suspicions of literal violence are unfounded, the general does embody a form of tyranny that is every bit as real: emotional and social domination. His obsession with wealth, control of his children's lives, and cold dismissal of Catherine's dignity illustrate that oppression need not take Gothic form to be damaging. In this way, General Tilney symbolizes Austen's reinterpretation of Gothic tropes into the realm of everyday social reality. General Tilney's behavior consistently reflects his preoccupation with wealth and status. He welcomes Catherine warmly when he believes she is rich, then cruelly casts her out upon discovering her modest circumstances. Later, he only consents to Catherine's marriage with Henry because Eleanor secures a wealthy husband, restoring his family's social position. His character thus symbolizes the corrosive effects of materialism in a society where marriage and relationships are often reduced to financial calculations. Broader implications. General Tilney's behavior highlights the hypocrisy of a society that outwardly values civility, but inwardly prioritizes wealth and status above all else. His initial attention to Catherine appears generous, but it is revealed to be motivated by greed. Austen's exposure of this hypocrisy reflects her larger critique of social conventions that mask self-interest with politeness. Through the general's actions, Austen highlights the centrality of money in determining marriage prospects. His treatment of Catherine dramatizes how women, in particular, were vulnerable to being appraised as commodities in a marriage market. Catherine's eventual marriage to Henry, secured despite the general's disapproval, represents a rejection of this mercenary view of marriage in favor of personal happiness and integrity. Catherine's Gothic suspicions about the general may be fanciful, but they capture an underlying truth. He is indeed a kind of tyrant. Austen thus complicates the relationship between fiction and reality. While Gothic exaggerations distort the truth, they can also serve as metaphors for real-life experiences of oppression and control. General Tilney embodies this paradox. He is no Gothic villain, but he is oppressive enough to justify Catherine's instinctive unease. General Tilney's authoritarianism reflects the patriarchal structures of Austen's world, but the novel also gestures toward resistance. Henry's defiance in marrying Catherine despite his father's objections demonstrates the possibility of challenging such authority. In this way, the general's character not only illustrates tyranny, but also sets the stage for acts of independence that critique and resist it. Conclusion. General Tilney is one of the most critical figures in Northanger Abbey, not because he is sympathetic or admirable, but because he represents the darker forces against which Catherine and Henry must define themselves. His role in the narrative is that of the antagonist whose actions create conflict and test the heroine's resilience. Symbolically, he embodies the Gothic villain transposed into a realistic social setting. A man whose tyranny is rooted in greed, status-seeking, and patriarchal authority rather than in secret crimes. The broader implications of his character are far-reaching. Through General Tilney, Austen critiques the materialism, hypocrisy, and oppressive structures of her society. She suggests that while Gothic novels may exaggerate tyranny into melodrama, the real world offers its own forms of oppression that are subtler but equally destructive. General Tilney is thus both a parody and a warning, a reminder that the true villains of everyday life may not lurk in abbeys with dark secrets, but sit at the head of respectable households, wielding authority without compassion. In the end, Catherine's triumph lies not in exposing a Gothic crime, but in surviving and transcending the general's social tyranny. Her marriage to Henry represents the possibility of building a life founded on affection and mutual respect, rather than on the cold calculations of wealth and status that dominate the general's worldview. In this way, General Tilney's character underscores Austen's enduring critique of a society where material ambition and patriarchal authority threaten to overwhelm the values of kindness, integrity, and love.